we were running a festival one year at a Mind Body Spirit Festival, and we were giving away taster sessions. We had a big sign up that said free psychedelic experience, no substances. And we had a long line, as you can imagine, because people were curious as to what was happening. With that program, we wanted to design something that was going to give people's brains something really special to decode in a very short period of time. Because I'm sure a lot of you are aware by now, but if not, let me let you in on a very powerful Pandora Star secret that a lot of people who use it for the first time don't know about. So this is all about set and setting and using your Pandora Star as usual in the most ethical way. If you're using it with clients, if you're just using it personally, great, then we'll cover any of your questions around that stuff too. But I'm pretty much just going to give you best practices of what I've learned over the years. It's been 8 years now, actually, when we launched Pandora Star. So we've been around a while now, and there's been a lot learned. We've learned things through our Pandora Spa that we ran in London for almost 4 years before Sky and I moved away. We're now living up in Scotland. And of course, we did festivals. We did expos, mind, body, spirit events. So there's plenty of experience that we've gathered over the years. And I found that obviously one of the most important things, same as if you're doing psychedelics, set and setting, it is so incredibly important. And with Pandora Spa, when I set up Pandora Spa, I knew that when people walk through the door, the mindset being set, what they walk in the door with, I had no control over that. If they were stressed, anxious, depressed, whatever it was, I wasn't in control of that. But I knew the setting that I create had influence over their mindset, influence on how they're presenting when they come through that door. And with that in mind, I set out to create a space that when people walk through the door, it instantly was like a state breaker. It just broke their state the moment they walked through the door. It was as if they were now already in session. It was like this was the space itself. I wanted it to literally be like a pre-session in itself to the Pandora Star session. And that's what I endeavored, and that's what I created. So I made sure that the music that they were hearing on entry, there was a scientific playlist that we found at the time. There was a study that was done, and they worked with a band. Some researchers worked with a group called Marconi Union, and they developed a piece of music called Weightless, as in floating. And they found that that piece of music was able to reduce anxiety in people in as little as 10 minutes. So I would usually have songs from that playlist, that scientific playlist, playing in the background when people entered. So already, the setting itself is starting to work in their favor. I made sure that there were always, and this would be an hour or so in advance, or pretty much the setup. When I woke up in the morning and I got to the spa and I set up for the day, I would have essential oils diffusing. And if I knew in particular, certain people who were coming throughout the day, if they were coming, maybe they just wanted to try Pandora Star for the first time. But if I knew they were coming for a specific reason, like for example, if they were stressed, then I would want to use essential oils diffusing in the air that would benefit them upon their arrival. So I could even, really, curate a space perfectly for an individual. Of course, the lighting was very important. And I'm not talking about lighting for the session yet, because that's also important to talk about. But the mood lighting was really important as well. So I had a good balance with the lighting, not too dim, not too bright when people entered the space. I had objects in the space that completely broke their state, created lots of curiosity. And it was what I would refer to as my way of giving, like a creative generosity to give to them. And I find that, because creativity is a huge antidote. It's a massive antidote to things like depression. And I think an antidote for a lot of the issues in our time. So my way of giving to people was through my own creative generosity. So I would spend, money knowing that, it was an investment in people's mental health and their well-being. So I remember when we had the spa at its height, I had a 3-meter tall pyramid. So this was a massive copper pyramid that I built inside the spa. I had this incredible reclining chair that was called the perfect chair that would sat in the middle of this pyramid. And surrounding this pyramid was a formation of gongs. It was like the gong chamber. And as soon as you walk into the space, it's one of the first things that you see. It just stood out. And like I said, it created this sense of curiosity in people, and start straight away. They would completely forget about their depression. They had a smile on their face, so they were no longer depressed for that moment. And they would start to ask questions. They're looking up, posture completely different from the, just moments before. So the space itself was geared towards help lift them. And even myself, other ways that the space, was curated for influencing their mindset was any arts on the walls, artifacts such as crystals. We had some really large crystals at the time. We had 2 really large rose quartz, and I sat them just opposite each other outside of the pyramid gong chamber. One was an obelisk, and that was the male, the masculine, and the other was a sphere, and they weighed about 100 kilograms each. They were massive, they were big. And the sphere represented the feminine. And so people would walk in, and just by what they gravitated towards, I always thought was a clue in itself, either on what they needed or where they were within themselves. People either gravitated over to the masculine rose quartz and they were touching, oh my God, this is amazing, I love this. Or they gravitate over to the sphere, the feminine. And I would usually just give them a little bit of dialogue around that stuff, a narrative that I'd constructed for those 2 crystals, regarding balance and the fact that, of course, rose quartz is about the heart center and compassion. So there were meaningful things to talk about within this space the moment they walked into the room. And again, this is having a powerful influence over their mindset. So you can now understand how set and setting is really working towards their benefit in a very powerful way. So again, I can't control their mindset, but I can certainly influence it. And again, like I said, if you're working with clients, there are so many things that you can do, to really, boost their outcomes. And, the set and setting are so critical to that. So, people say to me, so Pandora Star, we can use it obviously to create better outcomes. Can I use Pandora Star as a pre-session to another therapy? So somebody might want to use Pandora Star before they give a full body massage. They want people to be really relaxed. Great idea. Yes, Pandora Star can be used as a pre-session for something like that. How about a float experience? We have a lot of float centers throughout the world who use Pandora Star as a pre-session. Sometimes before people have their very first float experience, they might have a little bit of anxiety around that. So they put on Pandora Star. Pandora Star helps with the anxiety. A brilliant all-around session, if you're not already aware, for anybody who walks through the door, because most people who walk through our doors these days, especially living in big cities, they are suffering with mental health issues, stress, anxiety, depression, loneliness. Maybe they have sleep disorders going on, happiness. This is one of the best programs that I can recommend. And we built up a real formula over the years when we were running Pandora Star. So for, again, those of you who are using Pandora as a therapy, or well, within your practices, or if you want to use Pandora within your practice, I can certainly provide a formula that can help a lot. But yeah, happiness is a fantastic program. It will use a lot of beta waves, alpha waves, a little bit of gamma. So it's touching on frequencies that are designed to help create balance. Because like with stress and anxiety, this is a high beta wave, around 20, 22, 24 hertz, which isn't very balanced. It's not a very good brainwave state. And then depression is a very slow brainwave. So with happy, we're bringing them up to, 10 hertz, 12 hertz, 14 hertz, which are very good brainwaves and, brainwave states that, with the alpha, we can stimulate serotonin in the brain. With alpha, we can stimulate the body's own natural painkiller, endorphins. When we're around the 12 to 15 hertz range, it's an SMR frequency. So, we can touch on areas there, 15 to 18 hertz, people that have things like learning difficulties or, such things, 15 to 18 hertz, all these are, it's a great frequency range. If people come to the spa and, maybe they were feeling really stuck, had a lot of stuck energy going on, and they felt like their circadian rhythm was out of balance, or they just needed a general recalibration to their nervous system, we would put them on frequencies in the frequency range for the alpha theta border between 7 and 8 hertz, where you have the Schumann fundamental, 7.83 hertz. So much magic comes from that frequency and that range of frequency, like 7.8 hertz is an example. 7.8 hertz is great for increasing the flow of blood to the brain. Anyway, we're getting a little bit off the original topic of set and setting. So just of what I've said already, you can have a great experience with people just by creating this perfect space for them. I also made sure that the seating was really inviting, really comfortable. We had a huge sofa, which was a very firm sofa, but very comfortable. And it was expansive. It really consumed people in the sense it was so big, but when you sat on it, you just felt safe. You felt comfortable, you felt safe. So there's so many ways we can create this space that is going to have a powerful influence on their mind, which is going to allow them to ultimately, and also on the things that we say, to be able to surrender to the experience. Because I find having that, that is really critical for going really deep, to have that breakthrough experience that people are looking for. That people, to be very honest, a lot of people have had, they've had word of mouth. They've heard about Pandora Star. They've heard about the magic of Pandora Star. The same magic, the type of magic, what you might hear with different modalities, like the Ho'oponopono as an example. This is very deep magic that, works on, in the ancient sense of the practice, with regards to communities. Whereas nowadays, obviously, the modernized version of the Ho'oponopono, the practice is no longer, the modern version is not about that community environment where maybe for weeks, these spiritual leaders are preparing people's minds, bodies, and spirits for the gathering. And, which was going to be hard. Let's face it, when you're bringing family and loved ones and your community together to talk about their how they've been wronged, and for people to give remorse, this kind of stuff, that can be hard. To listen to people's stories of hurt can be hard. So when they modernized the Ho'oponopono, and they made this forgiveness practice between you and the divine. All right. So I look at things like Pandora in very similar ways. So when people are coming to us, they're looking, to have this experience to where they can feel like, as an example, where they are receiving. Because I think a lot of people are operating within the realm of barely surviving in a sense. So we want to give them relief. We want to give them that opportunity to feel like they've genuinely received. And with the formula that we used to run at the spa, big part of that, like I said, was the setting, but also the things that we'd talk about, we'd share with them, and the space we'd give them to share back. This gives them some sense of relief and a sense of receiving. And usually if I followed the formula that I created, to the letter, by the time that their session finished at the spa, they would usually say something to the effect of, wow, I feel like I've really received. And this was our goal, to hear them say something along those lines. And what they would say after that, I always found really curious, because again, it was almost universal what was happening. People would be like, we were down in this serene environment below ground. It was subterranean environment that we'd created. And so you couldn't hear the hustle and bustle of 7 million people in all of Greater London. You couldn't hear any of that. It was almost like they'd entered another dimension of reality when they entered Pandora Spa. And what I found really incredibly fascinating is, like I said, when their session finished, they would say, to some degree, they would say something like, what do I do now? Now I'm feeling this way. I feel like I've received. I feel really open. I feel vulnerable again. I feel open to the world. But when I go back upstairs, and I have to go back out into the real world, and millions of people, I'm going to be around. What do I do? And for me, it's a very natural thing of what happens next. When you feel like you've received, then it's time to give, and you're now part of that universal cycle again. When you feel you've genuinely received, it's not time to wait. The time is now to give back, even if that's giving a smile, giving a friendly greeting, giving a wave to somebody, giving a hug, whatever it is. I mean, I'm not talking about a monetary giving. This is our most natural ways to give. So I would share this idea with people. When you go back up into the world, it's time to give. And then, you're going to receive again. And then you acknowledge that. You maybe, through something that happens on the way home, some powerful synchronicity. And I would say to them, when you then receive something like that, I would normally say, thank you, universe. Thank you, great spirit. Thank you, great mystery. More, please. I wasn't afraid to have this spiritual wealth of all good things come to me. And I knew with my strong gratitude, I could stay in that cycle. I could stay in that cycle of give to receive. So this was one of our goals with Pandora Spa, was to create this powerful setting that would influence their mindset, to have them come to a point to where they can start to relax and ultimately trust, because I think trust has been damaged so much within ourselves, so much within society. And this is one thing that we're doing. We're opening to the opportunity of trust. And one of the things that I did after people arrived, and after they had a chance to look around this Aladdin's cave of marvelous things, these allies that they were open to within the space, the crystals, the pyramid, the gongs, even the setup itself for the Pandora sessions were in these cool pods that we created, for them to relax in, with beautiful, comfy upholstery. So after they got a chance to really look around the spa, take all in the aromas of the essential oils, whatever it was, the music, I would then sit down with them. I'd give them the consent form to go through, ask them if they have any questions about the consent form. And if everything was okay with that, what I said next, I always felt in my heart, was the next important thing within this formula. And that was giving them a sense of control during the Pandora Star experience itself. Because I think, especially in this modern world, especially over the last few years in particular, people feel even, more out of control, less under their control. So I wanted to give them a sense of empowerment. And so what I would say to them was this. I would say, okay, so whatever you've heard about Pandora Star in a good way is probably very true. But it is designed to be a very intense, bright experience. So the light will be very intense when it comes on. So you'll have your eyes closed, you know, I'll start the light and it will be bright. And maybe at first for the first 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, you might find it very, you know, very intense indeed. But what you can do is you can, with your eyes closed, you can just take your hands and you can just play with the light like this. And if it's too much, this is the off button right here. That's the off switch. That's on again, off, on. And you can just play with the light until you feel comfortable. And then you can put your hands down and enjoy the rest of the session. Now, even by them doing that with their hands over their eyes, they're creating interference patterns that are creating even more artifacts that, you know, their brain is decoding because of those interference patterns. So that's a good thing. They can experiment with that, but it gave them a sense of control over the brightness. I then said to them, after you put your hands down, if you still find it's still too much, just a little bit too intense, maybe they're just very light sensitive, I said to him, you can scoot down a little bit. You can just come out from under the light by 1 or 2 inches, 3 inches, whatever you feel comfortable with. I would say to him, we built the light to where the lens covers for the LEDs have a wide beam angle. So you don't have to be directly underneath the light. You can be, you know, maybe just the top of your head is under the light. And that's enough. You can still have a very profound experience. So this is 2 ways I've now given them to, you know, have a sense of control over the experience. And finally, I'd say to them, if you find that even after, you know, that, if it's still too much, you can just stop. You can just come out from underneath the light altogether. And what I said next was really important, you know, to go along with that. I would say, you will not offend me, because sometimes people will people please. And so I will make sure that, you know, they have the permission slip. They're not going to offend me. So I would say, you will not offend me. You know, this is about you. This is not about me. This is not about my experience. This is about yours. So, you know, these are the things I would say to them. And it's almost as if I would give them a panic button that they're never going to use. And then, you know, 99 out of 100 sessions, you know, maybe every now and again, you might see somebody do this, and that's great, because now they feel they have the sense of control. Now and again, somebody might, you know, just scoot down a little bit. Great. They've listened. They've taken on board that they're feeling empowered to do that. And maybe 1 out of 100 people might say, okay, this is still too much. Can you stop? And I'm grateful for that too, because they felt strong enough. They felt that they could trust me, that I would not embarrass them. I would not say something like, oh, you sure you don't want to stop? It was in their hands, and I had respect for them, and I was building trust with them. So these were really important for me, along with the setting itself, to give them this sense that, you know, I'm going to respect their wishes. I'm, you know, laying out the opportunity for them to be able to surrender deeply to this experience, because it's one thing to have a very superficial experience of Pandora Star, where you get to experience, and it's not even really superficial, but it's the entry level as far as I'm concerned. The beautiful colors, you know, the kaleidoscopic color, the geometric patterns, the expanding and collapsing fractals, you know, that stuff is profound in itself. And, you know, easily 90% of people who use the light will experience, you know, all of that. But for me, when you get to the point to where you become one with the light, because you start to surrender to the experience, you start to let yourself go, but you're letting yourself go because you feel safe. You feel that the person looking after you while you're in session, you know, has your best interests at heart. And you feel the space itself is very conducive, very conductive for you going deeper. So that's why setting is so important. And if I can see, and when I observe people under the light, you can see when they start to really deeply relax. You can see when they really start to let go and really trust themselves. And that becomes testament to the good work that you've done on creating this perfect setting that has had this beautiful, loving influence upon them, to give them this gift to release, you know, to let themselves off the hook in that moment, to have this deep, beautiful experience. And at that point, I think at this point, this is when more than 70% of people can have a breakthrough experience. And of course, that can look differently for a lot of people. Maybe somebody leaves that day completely forgetting about their anxiety that they walked in the door with. For people that wore glasses, this was a very curious phenomenon that happened, we found, with 1 out of every 20 people that walked through the door wearing eyeglasses. We would always say to them, take your eyeglasses off for the session. You're not going to need those. And when they would get up, they'd start walking around. They were so happy. They would completely forget about their eyeglasses. And when you remind them, oh, don't forget your glasses, they then look around the room in shock. They're like, what? Wait, what? I can see perfectly. My vision is perfect. We don't know how it happens, but it happens. Around 1 out of every 20 people who use the light, who wear glasses, they have a temporary full restoration of their vision. And it might last a few hours, it might last a few days. It's a very interesting phenomenon. So a breakthrough can come in very different ways. I remember having another woman, we were running a festival one year at a Mind Body Spirit Festival, and we were giving away taster sessions. We had a big sign up that said free psychedelic experience, no substances. And we had a long line, as you can imagine, because people were curious as to what was happening. And we were running a session which was 3.4 minutes long, so less than 4 minutes. It was opening Pandora's box. On the program list, it's OPB. And with that program, we wanted to design something that was going to give people's brains something really special to decode in a very short period of time. Because I'm sure a lot of you are aware by now, but if not, let me let you in on a very powerful Pandora Star secret that a lot of people who use it for the first time don't know about. Pandora Star does not produce any colors. Pandora Star, the light itself, does not produce any shapes, no geometry, no fractals, nothing. Pandora doesn't create any of that. The individual's consciousness does. So all we're doing is creating programs that are using brain waves that we know might produce particular colors, that we know might produce, artifacts of some order, but we have no idea what. No idea what. The number of times where we've had, let's say, 6 people under one Pandora Star, and there's a way to do that if you're not familiar with that either. You need a really good tripod set up for that. But you can have up to 6. We've had sometimes 8 people under the same Pandora Star because we had the right setup for that. So 6 people under one light, all in the same session, and at the very end, everybody completely surprised that none of them had had the same experience. They were reporting different colors, different artifacts. Some were reporting out-of-body experiences, some reporting seeing loved ones in the light, having conversations, some maybe reporting off-world experiences of other magnitudes, but feeling a good sense of dissociation from the body. And I mean a really good sense of dissociation. So, breakthroughs can come in very interesting ways. So anyhow, so this woman came to the Mind Body Spirit Festival because she'd heard good things about Pandora Star. She had extreme social anxieties, agoraphobia. So, she would rarely leave the house, but she heard about the magic of Pandora Star. And so she came for a session. So she arrived, she told me about her, her condition. So I made plenty of space for her, made her feel as safe as I could, got her under one of the machines, put on OPB, less than 4-minute session, finished the session. I could see the anxiety during the session through her body language, but she finished, thanked me, left. And it was interesting what happened next, because it wasn't a year before I bumped into her again at a similar festival. And what she told me happened next, if you can't class this as a breakthrough experience, then I don't know what a breakthrough experience is. So she said to me, I don't really know how I found myself there on that day with all my social anxieties, all the, all that, sense of being out of control, but I was there nonetheless. I had the session, I left, I went home. She said, when I got back home, there was a switch, and I could feel something was different. And I had a sense that I wanted to go outside. I wanted to be around people. So I went out and I was around people. I then came back home, and the next day it was the same. I needed to be outside. I needed to be around people. And she said this went on for about a week, and it didn't stop. She said, okay, I don't know what happened. I don't know what kind of miracle happened from that light, but I have to take full advantage of this. So she booked a world trip. She traveled to Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, and everywhere she went, she got a job working behind a bar in a club. She said it was like I became this extrovert, and I had this huge need to be around people. I mean, she's talking about connection. We're hardwired for connection, right? And it was so beautiful, her sharing this with me. And I said to her, that is fantastic. I said, would you like another session? She was like, hell no. She said, whatever superpower this lamp gave me, it is not taking it back. You know, and I completely understood what she was saying. It was like Pandora rewired her brain, and she didn't want anything, even Pandora, to have any opportunity to mess up that rewiring. But, you know, so this is, for me, this is the kind of stuff that comes from us being so mindful about creating that perfect setting. We are able to influence their mindset the moment they walk into the door. Again, we're breaking their state the moment they walk through the door. They're just seeing all these shiny things. Oh, look at those crystals over there. Look at that pyramid. Oh my word, I wonder what that does. You know, even the water that I would give them, they'd see me go over and, you know, take a glass of water from a glass container that contained black rocks, black shiny rocks in it. And they'd always ask, what's this? What kind of water is this? And then I'd explain that to them. And again, it's that curiosity. It's drawing them out, you know, drawing them away from their stress, drawing them away from their anxieties, drawing them away from the depression. And this is, you know, even if it's creating some confusion in them, why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling joy in the presence of this man? Why am I feeling safe in this space? And it might create confusion, but as Anthony Robbins would say, confusion is a sign that you're ready to grow. You're ready to grow. All right. So I didn't mind the confusion. I knew it was a good sign. I welcomed people's confusion as to why they were feeling this way, you know, feeling so different. How can they just have this journey of 20 meters from outside the building to inside this sacred space? And this confusion comes around. All right. So this is what it's all about for me. And that's exactly what that space was. It was a sacred space. I treated it as if it was an extraordinary space, a space where people can go from the ordinary, to leave their, you know, the ordinary behind and experience the extraordinary, to have this portal to other dimensions of reality, other dimensions of themselves. So yeah, this was a portal, you know, this was a sacred portal. And again, you know, so this conversation is about set and setting. And I hope you've gathered from, you know, the things that I've said here that, you know, this was there. I mean, there's obviously so much more that we could talk about. I want to make sure and have plenty of time for your questions, though. I want to spark as much curiosity within you. But just, I want to leave a few more things with you before I get to questions, things that I personally, because I'm not just a businessman, I'm a spiritual man. And, you know, so my bottom line was not solely money. Yes, I needed to pay the bills. I needed to pay for that space. I wanted to create an income for my family. Even Pandora Star, you know, the price that you paid, the price tag for Pandora Star, you know, we wanted to create, you know, real value for you. And, you know, because for me, this is a value exchange, you know, same as every other area of our lives. So, you know, yes, we're businessmen. You know, I'm a businessman, but I'm a spiritual man too. I want to make sure you receive fair value for this. So the new programs we create, you know, being there to support you when you have questions, you know, so, you know, long-term care, And this is one of the reasons for this seminar as well, is to really spark this community, to bring it to life again, this Pandora Star community of owners. We want to set ourselves up for the future, because I think people need us now more than ever, way more than ever. You know, this isn't just about us and the light. But moving on to that topic of Pandora herself. So for those of you who are not aware, you know, we purposely named the light Pandora, not, you know, a lot of times, I guess, when people hear the name Pandora, they go to in their minds Pandora's box. And what happens when you open Pandora's box? I mean, for me, this is a powerful healing journey. It's a metaphor for shadow work. You know, you open up the box. What happens when you start shining light into dark places? You know, you're shining love into the darkness, you know, and Pandora, to me, Pandora Star is she's a sacred threshold keeper. That's what she is. She is a sacred threshold keeper. Her role is to sit there, you know, in that threshold between worlds, to help guide people and shine light into the shadow for them. And that's, you know, that's the purpose of this. Every single light that goes out the door, you know, it sits in my office. I have an altar in my office. It'll sit on my altar in my office space, in my sacred office space, which I'll happily show you in just a minute. And for maybe a day, you know, it'll sit there, maybe a few days, depending on how many orders we have going on. And every now and again, I'll just drop into meditation right in front of the altar, right in front of their light, possibly your light. And I would invite Pandora and essentially the divine feminine into the space. I would invite the divine mother into the space, and I would start to pray and invoke, you know, the sacred elements. You know, I would do all kinds of stuff, but my main purpose was to invite the divine mother to bless that lamp, to bless that particular light in the way that was ideal for the owner of that lamp. And this is the brilliant thing about intention. You know, the intention for that prayer, for that lamp, I know who's buying that lamp. They've already ordered it, but, you know, they might have to wait another day before I ship it, because again, I'm not just a businessman. So that lamp is going to sit there for a few hours or a day, and I'm going to invite the divine, you know, feminine into the space to overlight that light. And I'm going to ask that the divine presence be felt by everybody who uses this light, whether they understand what the energy is or not, but for the divine feminine to be present and for, you know, those energies to be felt. So when you're using this lamp, you are not just using a mere physical object. This is a lamp that, you know, has, you know, energies that have been embedded into it through meditation, through prayer, through, you know, invocation. And I don't treat the lamp as a mere object, ever, ever. You know, even on a daily basis, when I go to the lamp, I'm very mindful. I don't use Pandora Star in any other way. I use Pandora mindfully. So even when I go to her, I do this. You know, it's just like my metaphorical bowl. And I empty the bowl before I go to her. I empty it literally before I go under the light. I empty the bowl. My mind is open, Pandora. My mind is open, Divine Mother. I am open to receive your love. I am open to receive your inspiration. Maybe I want to use Pandora Star as a pre-session to my session with somebody else. All right. So I'm now going to have a session under the lamp before somebody even arrives, because, you know, I want to be in a good state. One of the best frequencies and programs I can use as a facilitator before I give a session to somebody is a program called Hypnagogia. Hypnagogia uses 4 frequencies simultaneously: 7.8 hertz, 7.81, 7.82, and 7.83. So it's the Schumann fundamental plus 7.80, and the frequencies surrounding it all working simultaneously. The feedback that we get from this one program, there's a 17-minute version, there's a 29-minute version. The feedback is profound, but because it sits within that 7 to 8 hertz frequency range, that profound alpha theta border, it's where magic happens. Aha moments. People have a lot of inspiration at that point. It's great for emotional release. Again, 7.8 hertz increases the flow of blood to the brain, which is a lot of health benefits associated with it. But there are Reiki healers that have used the light at those frequencies that report the output from their hands, their palm chakras, feels like it's been increased by 5 or 10 times. You know, so using this as a pre-session can get you into a very intuitive state, which let's just refer to it as the flow state, because that's what it is. You are literally entering the flow state when you're in that 7 to 8 hertz frequency range. So, you know, if you're really feeling that you don't want to be in the way in any way, shape, or form before a client arrives, because maybe you've had a phone call or an email that has put you out, you know, into a strange mood, go to Pandora. Go to her openly, do a session on something like hypnagogia, or another really good session, which is 22 minutes, flow, F-L-O-W. Flow is a short session, a powerful session in its own right. It's just 7.8 hertz, and it will increase the flow of blood to your brain. It will start to really calibrate your nervous system in a very powerful way. And it's a giver. That program is a giver, all right? So I treat the light in some ways as not just as consciousness, but my personal lamp, which is this one back here. This is a power object. You know, this is an object that has an essence of its own, and it works for me. It works for this space. It works independently of me now. That's how much love I've put into this one lamp. That's how much love I put into it over the years. All right. So this is what I'm building when I've built this space, this sacred space. And it's for me, it's like, it's no different from if I'm going to have a ceremony, a plant ceremony with plant medicine, like sacred mushrooms or sananga, or working with grandfather Mapachu. You know, I would not go to these plant spirits without the reverence they deserve. I treat Pandora in the same light. So I'm working with the spirit of the lamp. So I hope I've given you plenty to think about today and plenty of inspiration. Okay, so does anybody have a question they want to ask?